Welcome to MAGICademy podcast. Today with us is the co-founder of Dextego, Ioanna, and Dextego is a AI-powered power skill training platform for mid-managers and especially for Gen Z populations. Welcome to the MAGICademy podcast, Ioanna.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. And so we're probably all curious, like you shared with me previously that you have experiences in HR, leadership development, and what triggered you to start this venture and helping mid-managers like Gen Z to develop their power skills? Just so curious.
Absolutely, yeah. So my background is in HR and talent development. I did a lot of research on the topic of high potential employees back when I was doing my master's. I was working with the professor of he was the chair of the management department. His name is Professor Tariq at Pace University, and we were doing research on stars, why certain employees have higher skills than others, what motivates them, how can we develop them. And I got fascinated about the topic of skills development overall. And so later on, I got a role in HR. I was a VP of People and Chief of Staff for a startup called Activio, a B2B SaaS revenue AI startup here in New York City. Through which I was basically hiring internationally from Paris, Hong Kong, Lisbon, New York, and truly saw the need for soft skills development, no matter the role, whether you hire for an engineering role, for instance, or a marketing position, you still need to have empathy and collaboration skills and leadership potential. So seeing that basically, but also the challenge that comes with developing these skills was really an eye-opening situation because there's so many e-learning tools out there, but they were lacking the personalization that's required to develop these skills and also the experiential learning that's needed. You can't just, watch a course or a 2-hour video and suddenly become a better leader. I wish it worked.
Wish it's that simple, yeah. Excellent. And that brings back to like the original question, actually. You named the startup Dextego. Is there particular reasons behind this name? And curious.
It stems from dexterity and ego, and the whole concept that we need mental dexterity to acquire some skills, like self-awareness is number one, right? And it's funny, like sometimes I'll ask someone before giving them access to Dextego, like, hey, what do you think your skills are? And then like they do some challenge and they get some feedback and it's a little different, and we talk about it, and there's just so much bias and everybody has their own worldview, but at the end of the day, like data can really prove to you who actually has some skills or how much someone develops like their learning agility. And I think it's fascinating. So yeah, self-awareness is key. It's something that I believe definitely my parents instilled in me, like being very cautious, not like negative way, but like, okay, is this something I can do? Yes or no? And if not, how I can get there? That is really what I think sometimes we're more missing, especially in team dynamics, like where everyone thinks they can do everything, right? Or when they take on too much and then something fails. All this starts from self-awareness. So that's where mental dexterity and Dextego is coming from.
Do you think there's a gap in terms of leadership development for people who's outside of that C-suite room? And how do you think Dextego is kind of helping to bridge this gap?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a huge gap. And as I said earlier, it's fundamentally because of cost, and that I understand. Mm-hmm. But in the past, the mindset that a C-suite would have is, why should I develop, a young manager when they might just leave in 2 years? Why will I spend all this money for them to not make it to the C-suite? However, what we see now is that there is a huge attrition war. The talent is leaving left and right, and AI coaching or generally good benefits and good talent is the only thing that can help companies attract and retain that talent. In fact, we know that, especially for Gen Z and millennials, the number one thing they're looking at when researching for a new job is learning and growing opportunities. They want to know they'll have career growth wherever they go. But they want to feel stagnant because they'll feel bored, they'll have low morale, and then they will end up leaving and have to do again the job search in a few years. So with things changing and leadership understanding the ROI of learning, I believe it will be a norm very soon. Now we start seeing companies really becoming serious about it, about their benefits, their well-being of employees, the 4-day work week, the holistic approach to development. It's not just succession planning, it's providing them with tools that help them personally and professionally. Like you see companies even being able to offer like stipends and tell sometimes employees, you choose what you want to do. But I think the second phase of that is being able to personalize the packages based on where they are, where their needs is. So for instance, let's say you have someone using AI coaching and we see with the data what they're missing, and maybe they're really struggling with motivation and they haven't been to the gym and they always say that's what they want to do. Imagine that being a strategic recommendation where it goes directly to HR and whoever handles benefits and says, hey, get that person a gym membership, a gift card or something. You will have pushed them and helped them to get there faster than ever. But it's all data. Like the more information we have about employees and where the needs are, the more empowered HR will be to be able to cater to them. Like this has been, I think, a big issue so far, that we didn't have enough data or the right data, and we didn't also know what to do. And now we're at the point in time where we have answers to all of this. It's just about implementing it and working the walk. So as long as HR leaders have the support of the rest of the leadership team, I think today is the first time ever they have so much power in their hands to really impact positively the workforce and create a very loyal employee pool, not just of current talent, but also potential candidates, so they always are on the top. That's my opinion.
You probably have been working with different organizations and helping them upskill. You mentioned about like sales development and communication. I'm just curious to hear your stories, like maybe 2 stories to start with.
Sure, yeah. I can say, for instance, one recent client where they basically offer services for elderly, and they have a lot of young managers. They wanted to leverage Dextego's AI coaching platform to develop these skills and connecting what we're saying at the beginning, really be able to handle different stakeholders and be able to develop those people skills. And on the other hand, the other use case for them is, okay, if I upload a video, right, and I had a town hall, can I get feedback on how people are engaged and if they're interested in what I'm saying and if there's employee engagement overall? So these were a couple of things they were looking for instance, that we could provide. Then other stories, and in their case, they sell to sales teams, so they're offering AI coaching for them for free as they prepaid basically licenses, and that will allow them to create a more comprehensive approach to supporting a sales team, not just like providing them with leads, but also developing their communication skills to turn those conversations into deals won. These are, I would say, examples. Like you can understand there is endless opportunities on leveraging an AI coach. It just really matters to understand what the client needs to prove at the end so that they have a tangible ROI that can empower their team to continue to use it, basically.
This is very interesting. And I'm curious, will we potentially be missing the kind of the dynamics where we are being coached by a real human, or when we're being coached in a group setting, the kind of the group dynamics or the interhuman dynamic, and how are these things being accounted for?
Great question. As I said at the beginning, like we're tapping into a population that doesn't have executive coaching. So we're talking about people that had zero support before, and now they have some sort of support. And the other thing I always say is that we always partner with humans. Like you can't just depend on developing your skills through AI or through a screen, because at the end of the day, if you don't talk to a human to practice that and see if you actually develop, it doesn't matter. It's like, digital money. Like, is it really there? True? I don't know. Can you touch it? Can you use it? So it's always about creating a space where people can practice, but then going out of that environment and really talking with humans. At the end of the day, what we're doing is to help them communicate with humans, not with robots. And what I always like to explain is that for people that maybe are insecure, maybe are introverts, maybe they struggle with languages, maybe they have any type of disability, the access to career growth and opportunities for development are so limited, because these are people that won't go out of their comfort zone to ask for help. And if you don't beg nowadays, it's very hard to get support from the world, which is a very sad reality. Connecting it to the fact that there's a lot of isolation, people would rather talk to an AI coach than to a human a lot of the times. And by empowering them to develop the skills so that when they are in an environment with people, like in front of the crowd and they have to present, like in a conference where they have to give their own elevator pitch, now they can do it. And once they like it, then they will go back to it more and more. Like there's this positive reinforcement that we're trying to create. And lastly, we offer opportunities for peer-to-peer mentorship and gaming through the platform, the understanding who you should get matched with. And sometimes this, in the real world, mentorship overall becomes a huge failure because people get connected for very immaterial things. Like, for instance, it could be people in the same location or some characteristics that have nothing to do with truly building a long-lasting mentorship opportunity for the people. And so I think there's so many pros in terms of AI coaching and so much progress that we've made in such a short period of time. But I think it's just the beginning and it will only get better. Unfortunately, I don't see human coaching getting to those levels in the employee hierarchy anytime soon. So till then, and how I see the future is a combination of human-led and tech-led approaches that can accelerate us and through data help us get to development faster, but also efficiently.
So it's like a human in the loop, and the AI is kind of there to help us develop all the necessary skills. So we get motivation, we get kick up a level of skill so we can be more confident and motivated when we're being with real human beings. And that's kind of like a positive reinforcement among AI and human.
Think about like a simple example back to the sales, like a VP of sales enablement cannot join every single call someone has with a client to get back and have one-on-one debriefs and say, okay, you did that, you did this, like maybe you can think of that. But they can let this person go through like, let's say 10 days of coaching training, see the trends and then have a much more realistic understanding of their strengths and weaknesses, focus that conversation on the things they need to develop and then come back to like 10 days after to see if they improve. But that can save them so much time and they can actually be more knowledgeable about how to form their playbook, what type of training they need to do in person. And it's just complementary because there's no competition between a human trainer and AI. You can't put them next to each other. It's just supporting
each other, reinforcing. Yeah, that's great. And we're kind of talking along this line. Can you help us understand in a simple language how exactly AI is being leveraged to help us develop important and critical human skills?
Yeah, so basically once you start interacting with the AI coach, it gives you some scenario-based challenges. And these are based on your role and your industry, and you start responding through video or text. If you do video, we have a proprietary AI emotion engine that we built in that analyzes your facial expressions, your tone, your pitch, and content of what you're saying to understand firstly what type of communicator you are, what triggers you, and based on your response, where are your skills level? How fast can you learn? Like, can you incorporate the feedback of the AI coach in your next challenge response, which shows coachability, and create basically an understanding of your needs to be a very personalized AI coach for you, which adapts, like adaptive learning over time according to you, because we evolve. And that's back to what I was saying earlier with the course. Like you can't just assign a course that everyone else in the organization will do. It's not for them. So the AI coach basically is creating the right content for you on demand and in the flow of work, which is what matters. Because when I have a question as an employee, I need the answer now, not like 10 minutes earlier, not 10 minutes later. I really need to basically feel like I have a trusted support 24/7 when I cannot go to my boss. Or you have a lot of people that feel embarrassed or that they will be judged if they go to a human. So we created a psychologically safe space for them to practice and get that feedback, as I said earlier, that self-awareness and be able to understand where they are in their journey. And we've built basically our own ML language, and it's super exciting because it becomes, smarter and smarter with every use, and the more people leverage this technology, the better it will become for all. So it's super exciting to see.
So based on this work, what do you think in general is a good coach, versus a not so good? Like, what are some good qualities of an excellent coach that AI can try to imitate?
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you, back in your life, can you think of someone that you labeled as a good coach or good mentor? Like, does anyone come in mind?
Yeah, I have a coach. He was coaching me on the foundations of entrepreneurship because he's like, "Oh, Gianni, you want to start things." So from my experience, I receive a lot of belief in me and my potential. Even sometimes I don't see that potential. Like, I'm just trying hard, but I don't know how good I can be. But I think seeing that belief from that person gives me confidence to at least keep on keeping on. And yeah, for me, that's important, is that sort of belief in you.
I think number one thing is when you see someone that sees you, sees the potential in you, it's a game changer because you feel like you're not alone. So having that something that you see in the other person's eyes, or just the language where they're like, you got this. It's a long journey, but I can see how you'll get there. And that's what basically the AI is doing. It's pushing you slowly but surely to get there. So it sees the potential based on where you're today, guiding you through it. And through the positive reinforcement that we said, to highlighting first what you did great and then reflecting on what you can do better. It will never tell you, oh, you suck at this, like, oh my God, you're terrible, which a lot of ones do. And that's what's really sad. Like, you have to go through a lot of negative feedback from the world around you to be able to become better. I think that's wrong. Like, I think
Me too.
you have to fail, but with empathy. Going in a call where someone yells at you, that's nothing good for you. It only creates a fear of rejection, of not belonging, and will make you more hesitant to create strong relationships with others. So I'm a huge believer in, the positive psychology methodology, a mentor that is the right mentor for you at the point in which you are in. So with humans, a lot of times that becomes a struggle to have a long-lasting mentor, like for 20 years, because the rate of which you develop and the other person could be different. And you might be in need of different skills at different points in your life, and that person might not be able to match that. The same thing goes for therapists, for instance, right? Like, I think the benefit of AI coaching in that sense is that it can adapt as fast as you develop. And so that, I would say, is what makes a mentor successful, that they also continue to grow with you. They understand how you develop and what you need at what time. And if they're not a good fit, they tell you that, like, hey, I think where you're now, you need someone else. Let me introduce you to so-and-so that has gone through what you're going through. So.
Or the AI can say, yeah, you're at the stage where I need a new set of database to help me provide better decisions. Please install this information for me.
And it will connect you also to the right peer based on the level of skills you have, and can suggest through that workflow, like, hey, I think now you should meet Gianni, but hey, now I think you should meet Ioanna.
Yeah. And I also wanted to kind of resonate on what you mentioned about the positive reinforcement, because I think in this world, it's just so common. Like, punishment based, or even when we're talking about like scores, right? You're taking scores out of 100%, and everything that you do, every effort you try, feels like you're just taking points away from what you already had, as like you start with like 1. And rather than that, we flip it and say, hey, we start at 0%. Everything that I do is a positive reinforcement, is a construction, is a one more brick that I lay on the for the foundation of my skills, and everything that I do is an asset that I'm building. So rather than like a punishment based, it's like more of an asset based and acknowledgement and empathy based world.
Yeah, and not everybody agrees with that. Like, I remember being in a conference and some people were saying, that's just Gen Z being Gen Z, like that older people like the fact that you have to go through the struggle. And don't get me wrong, I think we develop for sure through difficult circumstances. I think that's why I have developed as a person. It's just that the toll that comes with it, I think is not greater than, your development. So that basically, I think, is what people forget, that is part of the problem. Like, humans can be super mean and super compassionate, but is this always helping us in communicating better? And is this bring us together? I don't know. I'm not suggesting that we should be living in a world where there's only positive emotions, and everybody's super understanding because that's also a utopia. But a world where we have more of that and less negative is for sure something I think we can strive for, and is something we can achieve by developing and honing these human skills.
Yeah, and hopefully we're building a world that's warmer and more inclusive, more empathetic,
With less mental
and
health.
less mental health struggles. Maybe everybody will be able to grow even faster than the current world now, in a much lighter mood and less inner struggle. Because there's a lot of wasted energies right there.
Oh
You
yeah.
can definitely leverage that, like self-pity and self-blame and anxiety, and flip that into, okay, what's the next practice I can do? What's the next feelings I can feel? What's the next beautiful conversation that I can have with another coworker? So definitely
Think of
much
how
much more.
many people have told you that they want to start something and they've never done, just because of imposter syndrome or because they didn't have the support around them, that good mentor. Imagine if all of that was gone and we all kept innovating and making things better. Like, we would have been so much more ahead, but we're so into our head and we don't have this confidence and this toolkit of how to go about things in life, that when the first obstacle comes, we sat down. I think that's what we're trying to resolve here, is figure out how you can have a strong shield based on skills that no matter where you are and what's in front of you, you can overcome and go back to the important questions. How do we reorganize society? How do we become better? How do we leave a better world behind us? How can we support others and help people in need? I think we have enough problems to figure out, like, we will never run out of problems.
This is amazing. And I'm also kind of curious, do you leverage a sort of like metrics to like measure people's competency in, say, strategic communication, inclusive mindset?
We do have 8 skills that from our own research, like, we create the human skills model, and we thought that these are the 8 skills that are more transferable across roles and industries. Now, if the company wants, for instance, to personalize that because they care about one skill more than another, we can always do that. But really what it does is it creates a baseline of what basically your responses have been, and tries to push you to improve as a person. It won't necessarily compare you with like what others in your role said, because it's about you, it's your personal development. It's not making sure like you reach a specific point because that's what the standard
Everybody
is.
else.
Yeah, exactly. Really, that's, I think, so important, because I hear all the questions about those standard testings or like the profiles, different matrices they create, and there's so many pros and cons about these. Part of it is that they're biased because I give answers, right, to these assessments basically, and of course I'll say, yeah, I'm the best leader, yeah, I'm the best communicator, but when you actually have an immersive activity and you're more like yourself, you're not in the mood of, okay, now I'm going to do this assessment, I'll get a result. It's more of an experience that you understand is going to help you. You're more loose to actually respond the way you would respond. That's why it's kind of more realistic, and you'll see immediately like, oh yeah, I missed that, or my sentiment here, I spoke too cold or too warm, and that's the whole point. It's to guide you through an experience that can help you understand who you are so that you can better work with others for your role, for your industry. I repeat that because communication between designers is different than communication between like engineers. It's still the same skill, it just plays out differently.
And then, just as you're saying it, in my mind, I see like a pie chart, and so we'll have like different percentage of different skill sets, and that's kind of their unique human skill blueprint, and they can decide, which one to grow more, which one to like refine, which one to maintain. And I like your idea of like, you always are competing with not others but yourself a few days ago. And I think that's the mindset of all the world's leading sports players are doing. Like, just you are your only reference, and you can only grow, stronger than you previously. That also takes a lot of like value, less stress away from people trying to like be like everybody else. And, if it's not part of your strengths, then it's not building upon your inner magic or your inner power, inner magic. That's great. And so when you're using the AI to kind of provide evaluations, I would assume that you will have like rubrics, so the AI will look at their responses and based on the rubric to kind of give their feedback. Is that how how that works too.
Yeah, absolutely. To a certain extent, we have to have a kind of correct answer and understand. So what we do is we do a lot of work with the clients to understand what they consider like a right response. So we take into account whatever training material they've created. For instance, it could be the sales playbook they have developed internally to be able to assess if an account executive, as an example, is sticking on the script, which is how we assess basically structure in our module. Are they saying all the different aspects that their VP of Sales Enablement wants them to say? Confidence, like credibility, for instance. So it's a collaboration, I would say, of the content a client would give us and what we can find, whether it's from credible sources on the internet or the machine language model that we created, and a combination of all that adapted for the specific person's capabilities. Like we won't just say, okay, if we're talking about like, someone super introverted, like the expectation can just be that suddenly tomorrow, they just start speaking loud and engaging everybody, right? So it's back to that personalization based on your own level. We just want to see incremental improvement. That's how we know you're coachable. And of course, then it's just about timing and continuously practicing. And this is why we're saying it's micro learning, because the whole point is you do a few minutes every day so that you can see tremendous growth over time.
That's great. Excellent. All right. So as we kind of look far into the future, we still need to think in terms of, okay, what are some safety or guardrails we need to put? Because there could be a potential risk where we build such a deep connection with the AI coach and the coach is able to connect us to other peers and get us started. But how can we safeguard, the algorithms, the mechanics behind the AI coach to make sure that the coach is continuously and consistently providing high quality coaching and feedback without maybe, going reverse or give us some sort of surprise. We really trust it.
I mean, it's just that the type of data you give it, right? Like it has to be compliant, it has to be accurate, it has to be up to date. The same thing as with knowledge of a human. Like if I go ask someone that doesn't know what they're talking about, I get misled. The same thing can happen with AI. But if you train it on the right models, you have ethics in mind, right? You can have an chief ethical officer, for instance. You can get a good, diverse type of people to test it and they can validate it. And you have moderation. You clean the data. You make sure it doesn't provide harmful information. You make sure it's understanding of diverse cultures. Like for us that we do, for instance, the facial recognition and like the accent. If I, with my accent, can talk to it and understands, then probably someone else also can test it and say, yeah, it understands my accent. And then you basically have to do a lot of that, a lot of cultural aspects, right? And localization to be able to adapt to the needs of the people around the world and ensure that in our case, it's just basically trying to improve the user for themselves, not compare them and try to confuse them in their development journey because of what others do. And at the end of the day, I think any AI has to be able to show its value and its ROI, and that can happen by proving tangible things, showing like tangible takeaways to the user, like how they can basically take some information and implement in their life tomorrow. It's not about just being theoretical and just giving them a score to give them a score. It's about really taking them to the next level, in my opinion.
And then I'm curious about you now. So, Ioanna, and when you were like 11, 12 years old, what did you enjoy doing the most? What was your passion?
I had a lot of passions. Honestly, I was a very active kid, but I'll say that where I was born in Thessaloniki, like we had a summer house, like most people had there. And being raised by the water is just the best thing. It really grounds you and you feel like very connected to nature. But I remember like playing with my friends outside and being by the beach all day, taking in the sun and just playing water sports and, volleyball. And it was amazing. Like I really enjoyed it being there. It was definitely like my safe space, and growing up with these kids and going back there every summer and growing together and feeling like home basically was amazing. And so I will say, yeah, just being by the water and swimming. I'm a Cancer too. I don't know if that plays a role, I'm a water sign, but for sure I found peace in the beach. Yeah.
Yeah, my rising sign is also Cancer. That's great. I think in the ability to feel peaceful within nature is just so grounding, and we come from nature and I think that gives us the origin safety. Yeah, that's great. So throughout your life, did you have to kind of overcome particular challenges and that helped to shape who you are now or where you are now, if you're open to share that?
I mean, I don't think I know someone that hasn't gone through challenges. I feel like challenges are part of life, and that's why we have challenges also in Dextego too, right? Like these challenges are what creates your neuroplasticity and helps you grow, as we said earlier. Of course, tons of different challenges from just being an immigrant female founder now recently to being a Gen Z and being in spaces and working with people much older than me, coming to the US 8 years ago for studies and not really knowing anyone and having to create that life while growing up and figuring out who I am, all my friends and family being back home. A lot of different challenges, financial challenges, family challenges, health challenges, like all sorts of things are all part of life. I think the most important thing is to have one or two people you really trust and get you and remind you what's important in life, and everything else, you can fix and you can go through with your head high.
I resonate with you on that. I think people who I talk with, they're all going through different sort of challenges.
Everyone is, exactly.
Everyone is. Yeah, everyone is. Yeah. And so sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm going through so many challenges, therefore I'm just feel so sad. But the fact is, yeah, everybody is there. Everybody's not alone. The important thing is to find your inner magic and just do something about it.
I agree. Inner magic all the way.
What do you think is your magic then?
Oh, yes. Great question. I think my magic is my empathy, just being able to connect with people and just accept people, not judging them, and understanding also that we're nothing, like we're nothing on the scheme. In the scheme of the universe, we're tiny, we're not important, yet we're super important in this ecosystem, and we have so much power to change the world. So going through that dichotomy, I think many people are struggling to find their place in the world, and I think my empathy has allowed me to make some good connections and relationships with people from all sorts of backgrounds, and that has allowed me to find the courage to build a platform that increases exactly that skill.
Beautiful. I think empathy is one of the most powerful skills. It creates psychological safety immediately with people, and people open their hearts, and that's where all the possibilities come.
And it's also a huge burden. I think whoever listens and is very empathetic will know the burden and the toll that people who have a high sensitivity to the world around them have, and finding ways to protect yourself from it while using it for the good of others is key, and it's a journey on its own.
Do you practice like meditation every day, self-reinforcement? How do you take care of your own temple?
I don't do meditation every day. Like I've done this in the past. I've done Reiki and all sorts of things. I like just doing visualization. That really helps me, and do it every night. And of course, it's not like a one, size fits all. Everyone has different ways, but for me, it helps. It helps me ground, and it helps me see the path. And I think that once you see the path, you can go and execute on it. But when you don't, it's extremely hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, I try different things like meditation, prayer, writing it down, visualization. So it's kind of like a mixed approach to help protect and ground the energy. That's amazing. It's such a beautiful talk with you, Ioanna. And I know I threw at you so many improvised questions for your recording.
I love it.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time. It's great to have you, and good luck on your continued endeavor, helping people to see the value of Dextego, help people to develop more flexible egos and more important human skills. And
thank you, Jenny. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.